Hi, today we're going to talk about nap transitions and how to know when your baby is ready to transition to a new nap schedule. So, what is a nap transition? A nap transition is when our baby is on a schedule, maybe they're napping 4 times a day, and eventually they want to transition to 3 naps, then 2 naps, 1 nap, and no nap. So, how do we know when they're ready to make these transitions? So, for babies, we follow something called awake time. Awake time is the amount of time that your child is awake in between rest periods. This awake time is very important to ensure that your baby is getting enough awake time, enough stamina in their sleep drive, so that when we put them down to sleep, they're not just taking cat naps. Cat naps are super common and they don't take too long to rectify. What we do is we usually increase or decrease the awake time a little bit. If our child is really overtired when they go to bed, they're super irritable and they're not able to get a good sleep. And that can be a common cause of waking up through the night and also waking up early from a nap. Or if we put our child down too early and they're not tired enough when they go to nap, then they'll just have a quick cat nap and then they feel re-energized and ready to go again. So how do we know what the ideal perfect time is? These awake times are based on usually just the age. Development does come into play, and so if you feel like your child is not quite ready to make the next transition, but their awake time says they should be, or their age says they should be, then I want you to keep them on their schedule that they're thriving on. So what are the awake times that we're going to be following? So anywhere from 0 to 12 weeks, I want you to follow a 45 to a 75-minute awake time. This means that your child is only awake basically for a feeding, a little bit of play, and then they go down for sleep. So we want to disassociate feeding right with sleep. That way they're not relying on it as a sleep prop. Our next age category is 3 months to 5 months. 5 months is usually when either we're still feeding only milk or we're starting to introduce a little bit of solids as per your pediatrician recommendation. So I like to see babies awake from anywhere from an hour and a half to about 2.5 hours at this stage. This means that when they're 3 months, they're going to be on the lesser sleep end, or the lesser awake end. So they won't be awake for the full 2.5 hours. So once they get to that hour-and-a-half mark, we're going to try to get them to bed. From 6 months, about 6 to 8 months, is when we see that they want to be awake longer. So this is anywhere from 2 hours and 45 minutes to about 3 hours and 15 minutes. Once we get into the older ages of babies, from 9 to 12 months, we're looking at 3 hours and 15 to sometimes even 3 hours and 45. After 12 months old, so 12 to 18 months, we're almost at like 4 hours of awake time here. The most common age to transition to 1 nap a day is between 14 and 16 months. So when they're on 1 nap a day, their awake time is going to be 5 or sometimes 6 hours. So I like to say that children 18 months and above are on a 5 to 6 hour awake time, giving them enough time before their nap to have a great nap and enough time after their great nap to have enough time before they go to sleep. So when we're talking about transitions, when do we know our babies are ready to be onto a new schedule and onto a new nap? So ideally, we put our babies down for their naps and they fall asleep anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes. 20 minutes being the max. If they're rolling around happy and you look at the clock and it's been 30 minutes, and now the clock is creeping up and now it's been 45 minutes and they're still awake, even if they're happy, this is a little bit concerning because it's showing us that they weren't tired enough when they went to bed. So what we would do is we would increase their awake time by 15 minutes the next nap or between bed. One of the most common things is we would have the shortest amount of awake time in the morning and the longest amount of awake time right before bed. We have something called a sleep drive. Our sleep drive is our body's requirement to go to sleep. So if our sleep drive is too low, when we fall asleep at night, we might be tossing and turning and we're not falling into a good deep sleep right away. If our sleep drive is high enough, meaning we've been awake for long enough hours, we've been active, playing, we've ate good food, then when we get put to sleep, we are gonna fall asleep right away. So the most common time to transition a nap is at 6 months old. Usually transition down from 3 naps to 2 naps. And after this transition, then usually, like I said, around 14 to 16 months, we transition from 2 naps to 1. I have seen children wait as late as almost 2 to transition to 1 nap. When they're newborns, they are napping like 5 to 6 times a day, and we're not necessarily worried about length for newborns with their nap times. We just want to make sure they get sleeping after that 45-minute mark so that they're not tired. They're not overtired, because we know nothing is worse than an overtired baby. If you've been finding that nap time and bedtime is a huge battle lately, where your child is just awake and they're not falling asleep on time and things are just out of whack, I want you to really look at their awake time. Check on my Instagram for it and see if you are on the right end of their awake time. If their time ranges, let's say from an hour and a half to 2 hours and 15 minutes, and you put them down at that hour and a half mark, but they are wiggling around for too long, then I want you to push them 15 minutes. Changes that take place, they usually take about 2 weeks to develop consistency. So if your child has only been fighting a nap for 1 day, I don't want you to make any big changes yet. I want you to see if this becomes a consistent pattern and if it was just an off day or if this is becoming their new norm. If it's becoming their new norm, then yes, we need to change their nap time and possibly transition them to a lesser nap schedule. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I love to hear what you have to say.